A+. Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AC Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for Armada draft pick of the week later in the show. So, this is how today's show is going to go. We're going to do a flyover. All 7 rounds, all 7 picks, and incrementally throughout the next couple weeks, I'll be bringing on the Locked On host from the respective schools or conferences that which these young men played in to do full show breakdowns of all 7 picks. And for those that haven't seen this in the past, if you haven't been around a while, first segment is always what the kid was in college, what the young man was in college. Then the transfer of what he can be in the NFL. And finally, what he's like as a person, and I think that it's a great measure. It's a great get to know the new players for the Arizona Cardinals. And I'll be doing that throughout the next couple weeks. That's a promise I have to you. I thought today was best to just, in 25 minutes, talk about what we saw, talk about why it was mostly defense. And, it begs the question, are they bringing in some, reinforcements on the offensive side of the ball by way of veterans, wide receiver, offensive line, whatever it may be. Discuss it all today. I say it was an A+ draft, and I'll bring up the draft picks here. I say it was an A+ draft because it was an A+ draft for the Arizona Cardinals. It doesn't matter how other teams drafted. I play that dance, that game between comparing the Cardinals and their journey and their plight to other organizations, comparing, position groups, comparing quarterback strength and things like that. You can't compare draft day. It's like, who cares? The grades that the Cardinals have gotten from A+, a Pro Football Focus, there's an A-, there's a B+. It doesn't matter. It's all noise. What we know here is that the Arizona Cardinals not only drafted for need / talent on the defensive side of the ball, they then double, triple, quadruple down on defense and now have a situation where if you tell me the Cardinals are a top 5 defense at the end of the 2025 season, I will not gasp. And that is a wild transformation from the end of the 2022 season. It's an A+ draft, not only because of the value that each pick held, and I'll go over these, again, more of a broad stroke today and then much more in depth throughout the week and then into next week. Getting Will Johnson at 47, okay? I know we had the turf toe. I know there are these lingering things about his knee that maybe kept people away. After he drafted, he goes, I'm good. So if that's a fantastical just mistake by 31 other teams, and you get what looked to be a top 10 pick before the draft in the second round, it's like, what are we doing here? Then into Jordan Burch, edge rusher. You'll hear from the Locked On Ducks host about how versatile he is from that position. Then you've got your off-ball linebacker from Ohio State. Mac Wilson Sr. tweeted out, he goes, I got my rook, which is fantastic. Big schools. And then Denzel Burke, another Ohio State guy, was rated very highly 2 years ago. They might have got a steal with the trade back in the 5th round to pick up a 6th round pick. In the 6th round, they draft Hayden Connor, a Swiss Army knife from Texas, big school, who can play all 5 positions. What if they got their Gray Zabel in the 6th round? And then Keaton Crawford, I don't know every draft prospect, okay? I'm not reading The Beast by Dane Brugler from cover to cover. But what I've looked at, and this is what I look at with the grades of things. If they grade by, if, people who I trust and I respect and, are reputable naturally, I look at the 4th, 5th, 6th round grades of players. It's not chalk early, but you got your board, and there's going to be a guy or two that you can pick from that's from your board at 16, and the Cardinals got 100% the dude that they wanted, and arguably a top 10 pick. A lot of people are saying that Walter Nolan should have gone top 10. I look at the grades for the last couple rounds because that's where you find the diamonds. That's where you find the guys that can be a part of a team that wins you a Super Bowl. The first rookie contract is pennies on the dollar if they pop. If it doesn't work, they're really dart throws more than anything. But if you find a couple studs late, everything can change. Everything can change. And that pick in the 7th round, I saw a bunch of A's. And that could mean if he's ready to rip, and maybe I was wrong. Maybe you do by committee if you do move off Jalen Thompson and you got the 7th round pick and Adrian Taylor Demerson interchangeable right next to Budda Baker. But again, the reason why this was an A-plus draft is because it complemented what Monty Ossenfort did in the offseason up until that point in free agency. Do you remember when they pretty much didn't touch the defense for 2 off seasons? It was, Kazir White, it was Mac Wilson, it was Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones and Sean Murphy-Bunting. Like, it wasn't like this massive thing. And then they started to mold the offense. Now, completely different. The complete opposite. I am now of the age, wisdom loose, that a sexy defense is a stud defense is sexier than a stud offense. A stud defense travels to any weather. A stud defense travels to any, arena that you can't hear because it's so loud. A defense travels. A West Coast or an offense. Look at the Dolphins. Look at that offense. Doesn't travel. Gets cold. Oh no. What are they going to do then? What the Arizona Cardinals did in 2 short months is completely change the defense. It was ramping up the first couple off seasons, and then Josh Sweat, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, and then Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, Jordan Burch, Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, Keaton Crawford. Boom. Now, instead of looking at the offensive line like, oh, they're going to have to cut some dudes, who's going to make the roster on defense? It's the best situation the Cardinals could have found themselves in coming out of the draft. And listen, of course, I thought it should have been offensive line at 16. I'm not retracting that. I'm not retracting that at all. If they went Gray Zabel, if they went Josh Simmons right tackle at 16, I would have been equally as happy. And everything else was chalk, or everything else was exactly how it went, I would have been 100% happy. It still would have transformed. But what they did was they said, you know what? This defense will not be denied in 2025. It's the perfect mix of strength, speed, youth, veteran. It is, on paper, easily a top 10 defense in the NFL, sight unseen. Now, of course, you got to see what happens with the rookies and everything like that. But this is what I said when they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. The infrastructure is in place, and Paris Johnson Jr. The infrastructure is in place for these rookies to learn on the go in a fast-paced environment and be ready to rip in week 1 because they've got that veteran leadership around them. The Cardinals have vets, star vets, in the right spots for this roster. And that is a cheat code, especially compared to what rookies used to have to do after being drafted by the Cardinals. Byron Murphy, Marco Wilson. Good luck. Hope it works. Good luck. Hope it works. This isn't that. And that's why, above all else, this was an A-plus draft, because the roster before it complemented the draft picks that the Cardinals made so well that this cohesion is going to be so seamless that these rookies are going to be able to produce right away, even with the heightened expectations the Cardinals have going into 2025. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Why mostly defense, though? They passed on, especially wide receivers in the mid to late rounds, late day 2, day 3, and chose defense, aside from Mason Connor. Why? We'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Bink, the Game Time app. The Game Time app is awesome. Super easy to use. I use it when I buy tickets. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena. And with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. The prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Maybe you're going to a new arena to follow your team. You're like, I don't know what this section and row looks like. I don't know what I'll be seeing before I spend my hard-earned money. I kind of want to see. Well, you can with the Game Time app. It gives you a panoramic view of the seat before you buy the tickets. It's an absolute game changer. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals. Hit that subscribe button, man. Been loving the interaction throughout the draft. Let's keep it going throughout the offseason. Let's keep this momentum going. What I promise you is I will be doing a lot more shorts, a lot more content. I failed you in some respect with that. So get used to seeing my big dumb face a little bit more. Brian A., you get your shout out for that. Why mostly defense? Monty, he was asked about this, and he said best player available. It's just like these players kept falling into it. Like, how do you not? This isn't like fantasy football where you're taking like 9 receivers or something. They didn't draft the same position 7 times. What they did was like the craziest thing. And for people watching on YouTube, I'm popping this up. I have this on my on Twitter as well. Locked On our content, our social media content team are incredible here at Locked On. So the Cardinals drafted defensive tackle, corner, edge. They call Jordan Burch a DN. He's an edge DN. Off-ball linebacker Cody Simon, another corner in Denzel Burke, Hayden Connor guard who can play all 5 positions, and Gaetan Crawford safety. They just this is why I was in such awe. Why they drafted defense? Like, who cares? First of all, it's like, who cares? Draft good football players. And the Cardinals roster is in a situation as such now where you can do that and warrant anything. And that's what I've said throughout the draft process. Like, I don't care what positions they pick. As long as it's not, a quarterback or running back, regardless of how deep this class is, just let it rip, tight end. Let it rip. They need everything. I think why mostly defense, this is for me. Like, when I saw the shift, it was the fact that Will Johnson dropped at 47. I think that changes the landscape of any sort of plan you have going into a draft. I think it changes any sort of plan because you don't expect him to be there number 1. Okay. That was a prime spot to take an edge, to take an offensive lineman. But when the dude's there, then you have to bump down. Like, that was not a situation that anybody saw actually happening. Him dropping out of the first round was crazy. Teams were trading him. It's like, oh, Will Johnson finally going off the board. Oh, Will Johnson finally going off the board. The dude was the defensive MVP of the national championship game 2 years ago. And you know who's the defensive MVP of the national championship game last year? Cody Simon, who the Cardinals drafted in the 4th round. The Monty Ossenfort Ohio State thing's hysterical. It's like, cool. At least it's not a Monty Ossenfort, McNeese State thing, a Fordham thing. Shout out to Chase Edmonds. Sorry, that was a stray. I didn't mean to go. I didn't mean that. I just said Fordham. I completely forgot that he went there. But why defense? I think that was it. Like, that was the catalyst for like, okay, this is new. Nobody expected Will Johnson to be there. People thought he should take him at 16. And when you see these studs that are still on the board in the 3rd round, like I read somewhere, and this was reputable. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. That The Cardinals, like 5th and 6th round pick, had 3rd round grades. Like, this draft was so much deeper, even beyond 25 to 70, than people expected. And when you have a couple powerhouses in college, like, it's not just Georgia anymore on defense. Ohio State's got a good defense. They've got a good offense. They were a Super Bowl. They were an all-star team last year. NIL changes everything. But I think why mostly defense, it's like, I think part of it must have been when Will Johnson was there. It's like, okay, so do you just go full bore here? Now, that wasn't the impetus for everything and every pick, but when you look at how things transpired, like, every single player the Cardinals drafted was a massive impact maker from their team last year, and every single one was from a Power 5 conference. It's Ole Miss, Michigan, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and then Keaton Crawford started at Texas and then ended up in Nevada. Like, these are big boy schools, big boy spots, and a lot of times in these situations, and why players drop is they don't show their pop because they're players that are better than them. But if they were a starter somewhere else in a middling school, they'd be the star. And that's what shows in the NFL. That's the coaching, that's the massaging, that's the scheme, that's all of these things. And if you look at the draft cards leading up to it, the comment with any of these guys, they're great against the run. That's one thing that Monty Osford and Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis, that's what they thrive on, especially from the DBs. Got to be able to hit people. I always say that, Max Melton, David Kelly never said they like hitting people. They're going to be fine. Jalen Thompson was perfect. Like, you could have moved off Jalen Thompson after the 2023 season, but he fits the mold. It's perfect. Budda Baker obviously is the leader of the charge in that respect. Open field tackling, not being afraid to hit people, and doing things outside of just covering, outside of just rushing the passer for the edge group. Like, I was reading about Jordan Burch. He's not terrible in coverage either from a passer. So if he has to drop back, this isn't going to be a Chandler Jones situation where it's like, oh no, this is never good. Oh no, yeah, Chandler, no. That's not what you want. That's not what you want. And then, he gets burned down the sideline for 15, a touchdown, whatever it was. So PTSD. Why mostly defense? Because other teams let them draft players they shouldn't have let them draft. So in that situation, like, don't overthink it. Just draft a player. And it's not like the Cardinals have 7 corners already that are ready. I mean, they're getting close, but there's now competition for reps. There's now competition in the CB room. They could cut Sean Murphy-Bunting. They could. I don't think they will. I think the veteran presence there is important. The defensive tech, like, you could, depending on what the numbers are, and I'll break this down a lot more as we get closer to the season, but are Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones expendable? Do you just eat it? Or do you see, like, you kind of play this year out and just let the cream rise to the top? I don't know, but it's a fantastic problem to have on the defensive side of the ball. It's a fantastic problem to have. Big schools, big difference makers, and positions of need for talent and need for depth. All realized in 3 short days. For those who think I'm going to say I don't care. Tough 3 days for Steve Keim truthers. This is what drafting looks like. This is what drafting looks like. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Is it time to bring in vets on the offensive side of the ball? Are they good to just run it back like I've mentioned? Like, if they don't touch the offense, it'll be fine. And there's one little wrinkle to that I want to discuss that now is going to be much more pronounced. Next. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. The Armada pick of the week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. This week, we're highlighting the top pick from our draft, the one selection that truly stood out, the guy who showcased the strength and power to push the Arizona Cardinals forward as we look ahead to the next season. This week's Armada and clear-cut top pick of the draft is, you can say it, just say it. We're going to say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3, Will Johnson. So here's the thing. The fact that dude went in the 40s is going to be looked at as maybe the steal of the draft. There's 260 plus players picked, okay? So the steal of the draft can have a couple different definitions. He was looked at as going top 10 2 days before the draft. And the Cardinals got him at 47 because there was some potentially fugazi report about his knee when he comes in and goes, I've been good for 2 years. That's why. The dude is a stud. He's Saquon Barkley of cornerbacks. He's always looking for the home run without burning his teammates. The dude is ready to rip. And when it comes to Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. And that's exactly what I think Will Johnson can do with the Arizona Cardinals. It's clear that our top pick of the draft is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can do in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop at NissanUSA.com. I mean, I think overall everybody's pretty happy with what happened. Again, this is very early. Haven't even got to rookie minicamp, which is like right around the corner. Schedule release is the 14th, which I get so excited about that. That's one of the best things That's one of the best things the NFL did. Was realize there is a massive dead zone. Sure, you've got the NBA playoffs, baseball's in full swing, blah, blah, blah. You've got this thing that you can milk the bleep out of and leak little picks here and there. Oh, international. Oh, this is a Thanksgiving game. Oh, and then you drop it, you do a whole special, and everybody eats it up. And selfishly, it's fantastic for me for like a week. It's fantastic for a week. But when you look at where the Cardinals are now, and then, as we get closer to camp, rookie mini camp, and OTAs and mandatory stuff, it's like the one thing that I'm going to be discussing a lot on the show. So if you want to make a drinking game out of it, whatever it is, I'm talking a lot. There's like a buddy system with every position group on the defensive side of the ball. Vet, rookie. Vet, second-year guy. And it's awesome to see. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, it's not murky, okay? Because this is actually, like when you get something you want, sometimes it's not as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be. I got what I wanted. They're going to run it back with Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch and Zay Jones. And it's like, okay, it's on Kyler Murray and Drew Petzing to scheme these guys open more because they've got the juice when they get the opportunity. And it's going to be the third option or fourth option behind Trey McBride, whatever running back emerges, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I say whatever running back emerges, who knows? Who knows what the percentage is going to be? I think James Conner's numbers are going to go down. I think that Trey McBride's receiving yards will go down, but his touchdowns will go way up. But James Conner's numbers are going to go down because they're going to use Trey Benson more. James Conner will probably have more touchdowns and less yards, just like Trey McBride. If Trey Benson works out, which he showed the scoot necessary to be like, oh, yeah, he'll be all right. But, like, it begs the question, like, do they need to bring in veteran help at all, or can you roll? Are you good? And I don't know if bringing Amari Cooper in is a good idea. It's like, listen, at this point, you're going to bring in dudes who aren't going to ruffle feathers, right? You're going to, like, Zay Jones has been incredible. Zay Jones could have got a lot more runs somewhere else. He got suspended for the first 6 weeks. They knew that before they signed him, and he's been great. He hasn't said a word. Like, wide receivers, not all of them are divas, Like, it's a diva position. Cornerback is a diva position, and that's fine because you have to be confident. You have to exude that confidence, and, it is what it is. Amari Cooper would be a guy that would never, he's a good teammate, he's a good leader, things like that. It looks like he really lost a step in Buffalo. But if you're going to have a scheme where he doesn't need to be fast, bring him in. I don't think it's necessary. Their wide receiver room isn't deep, and that's the issue. Trey McBride, like, say there's an injury somewhere, they don't really have a backup plan right now, and that's kind of what irks me a little bit. But I got what I wanted. I'm like, yeah, just run it back with the wide receiver room. They don't need to draft a wide receiver. They've got their dudes already. But, and I'll go more in depth with this, with wide receivers and stuff who are still available. Like, don't groan right away. Don't groan right away. But if he could be had for $2 million or $3 million a year, would OBJ be terrible? He adds a different dynamic to this team. And the whole ego, he grew up. very quickly. After his New York days, he went to Cleveland. He was a problem, and then he wasn't a problem while still in Cleveland. And he's been great ever since. People forget. And he was never terrible. He was never a cancer or anything. But could he be good for 30, 40, 50 catches in a year? He doesn't need a whole lot to be able to go. Just find space. He's still really fast. He still catches almost everything. Would that be a guy? And, with the offensive line, I'm resigned to the fate, not resigned in a bad way, but I'm okay. They're going to run with their dudes. Isaiah Adams is going to be the guy at right guard unless it's Will Anderson or unless it's Will Hernandez. They've got Hayden Connor now, guard. I mean, they have Kristen Jones from last year too, from Texas. Is that good enough? Having Kelvin Beachum there is the ultimate safety blanket for the tackle position, either of them. And it's not perfect, but is it good enough? And if it's not, I will not shut up about it the entirety of next season. I can promise you that. But what Monty Osborne has done is, I think part of the reason why I'm like O-line is because it's part of it was so bad for so long. Why not make it more than good? So in case anything happens, the locomotive won't stop. And I'll talk about this tomorrow. But I can't help but think that the defense doesn't have to be top 10 anymore for the Cardinals to win a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying they're going to win one next year. I'm not saying they're going to, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to carry the weight anymore. The defense has been the strength of this team for the last 5 years, 6 years. All through the cliff times, the defense was the more stable force of the two. I've said it since day one, and I don't care that people, it was true. Defense was the strength last year for a large portion of it, even though they were severely undermanned. So you lean into that. Now the offense can play a little bit more freely, maybe doesn't have to run the ball on 3rd and 3 to eat clock and make sure the defense doesn't have to come right back on the field anymore because they were undermanned talent-wise. Having a defense you can trust completely flips the script on what offenses can do. So is that why we are where we are right now looking at this team? You want the defense to unlock? Get a much better. You want the offense to unlock? Get a much better defense. Allow them just to do what they do instead of worrying about about the defense not being able to stop anybody. Food for thought. Either way. Very, very good 72 hours for the Arizona Cardinals. This is just the beginning. I'm going to get the hosts on from, Jay Stevens, the Locked On Buckeyes host. He joins me every damn year. The last 3 years, he's joined me. Paris, Marvin, and then the two guys this year. Locked On Ducks did a great job. There's actually a reel of him breaking down the pick without me on Locked On Cardinals. You can check that out. This is just the beginning, man. It's going to be so fun. Stick with me. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. It's going to be fun. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.